finance as well. So whether it's FHA, conventional, and of course that VA home loan that you sitting on right now, call Alvin Jameson, 404-587.
The opinions and views expressed by this program are those of the program host, and guest, and do not necessarily reflect the views of Power 108.9 and its officials. We hope you enjoy.
From Christal with love, come on. From Christal with love, come on. Let's talk. Look here, I ain't the
Hey, happy Tuesday, everyone. Happy Tuesday, and welcome to From Christal with Love XL. I'm your host, Christal, and I am happy. We are starting a little late. We're starting a little late today. Traffic in Atlanta had me all the way held up, but I'm excited to be here with you all today, and hopefully your Tuesday is going a little bit smoother than mine is. A lot happening. I had a Fox segment this morning where we talked about the fact that Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck got married over the weekend. But not only did they get married over the weekend, but right here in Georgia, they are hosting a huge reception to celebrate their nuptials. Ben Affleck actually has a home, an 87-acre. I don't know if that's a home or if that's a estate or a compound or what exactly 87 acres is, but Ben Affleck has an 87-acre property in Hinesville, Georgia, which is right outside of Savannah, and the couple are said to be celebrating their nuptials there sometime this month. I'm sure they didn't want to share exactly when, because you know how people are. People will definitely be stalking and standing outside that property, that huge palatial estate, waiting to see that. But kudos to them. The interesting thing about the J-Lo and Ben Affleck, I didn't expect them to get married that quickly and without all this, to do, because we know Jennifer Lopez is really into press. She likes to do things big. She likes to give the people what they want. But the couple got married in Vegas with just their children there. And it's interesting because, when she was preparing to get married to A-Rod, they were doing photo spreads and shoots. They were both very into the press, the publicity, the promotion, right? But with Jennifer now, with Jennifer and Ben Affleck, it's very different. Ben has very different energy than A-Rod, and so is more private. And his estate is like a big country estate. She was there before. This is actually the location they planned to do their reception at 20 years ago. And so Jennifer Lopez posted with their wedding pics from Vegas, "Love is patient, love is kind, love is so patient, it would wait 20 years later." So I don't know. I think that's I'm not going to call it a love story because we don't know what the ending is going to be, but it definitely suggests that if true love exists, it can always be revived. And so, not saying that those exes that you need to let go of, you need to call back up, but if something is real, it doesn't die. So we wish the two of them well. I know this is I don't know how many marriages this is for Jennifer Lopez, but true love is worth fighting for. And so we wish them all the best. I also had the opportunity to report, sadly enough, that Joe Coy and Chelsea Handler have broken up. I'm not really surprised. Chelsea Handler is all over the place with how she dates. She was dating 50 Cent and Joe Coy. They're both comedians, and comedians they share so much of their personal life, and I would be afraid, how do you know if one of them is serious or not? So the two of them had posted a 1-year anniversary celebration post and then broke up before the anniversary. So they went ahead and posted the 1-year anniversary and said, "Hey, we did not make it, but we love each other," and blah, 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 blah. I hate when celebrities do that. It's almost like you're trying to give us a PR statement for the fact that you just broke up. But if you don't share as much, we won't need to know as much information. But anyway, that is what we talked about earlier this morning on Fox. I also had an amazing conversation with Duchess from Black Ink New York yesterday. If you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't seen that interview, make sure that you go back and check that out. She was very candid. We talked about self-love and just figuring out how to deal with anything that you're dealing with in life. If you are firmly rooted and know who you are, it won't be difficult for you to make sure that you're not dating the wrong person, for you to make sure you're not in the wrong situation. Self-awareness is key to every area of our lives. And that is why today's guest, I'm excited to have, we're starting a little late, but he is right here with me. Self-awareness and the understanding of one's community and who you are very, very, very important in not being swayed by all the many things that we see coming at us day by day. I have with me in the studio is cultural and social community activist Rahiem Shabazz. Welcome to From Christal with Love, Rahiem.
Thank you for having me.
We go back like
15, 20 years.
Yeah, for real. And I wanted to have you come in today because first of all, you have been trending. You've been trending a lot lately on some of the things that you've been sharing. But I saw there was a post that I'm sure everybody is familiar with now. There's a couple of things I want to talk to you about, actually.
Okay, let's go.
But we're gonna start. You know what? Let's don't start with the racial heavy stuff, right? Okay. Let's start with yesterday. The results came back from Kevin Samuels' autopsy, right? And it was determined that his death there was no foul play. Everybody was looking at the girl that was with him thinking that she planted or she poisoned him or something like that. But it actually was revealed that he died from hypertension, i.e. high blood pressure, which to me is ironic because Kevin Samuels talked so harshly about women being overweight and women not being attractive and dying alone. And in essence, he died from high blood pressure with a woman that was not his. So in essence, he kind of spoke into existence his own fate. Would you agree?
It's unfortunate how the brother died, but there's a lot of takeaways from that. Words are powerful.
Yeah.
And if you put it in the universe, especially if it has a negative effect, it can come back to you.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he should get the vitriol that he's getting.
I agree with you.
I can't say that I watched the whole entire episode, but I seen enough small clips to grasp what type of mentality he have. And overall, I think he had the best interests of us at heart.
Okay, I got to ask you about that. Come on, because you're somebody that speaks to our community, right?
Listen, to a degree, right? Because if you go back, there's a video where he said, I don't have that many followers. A lot of people are not tuning in because I'm talking about men.
Yeah.
But if I start talking about women, then that's going to open the floodgates. And I think he kind of played on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. You
right.
know what I mean?
Agree with that.
And some people say it was tough love. But my thing is his fan base majority was women. Those was the ones that was calling up. Everything that he said I didn't agree with.
Right.
But I do believe that there's going to be a Kevin Samuels school of thought. And people are going to follow him. And there are certain people, if you look at the testimonials, they say, they wearing cologne now. They putting on suits.
Men, yeah.
They considering themselves a high figure.
A high value man.
High value man. So I think some good should come out of it. But what I didn't like was the celebration of his death. You know what I mean? You shouldn't celebrate nobody's death.
Right.
And the same individuals that do that, I don't see that same vitriol for these white racist supremacists, that are doing what they do out here in society.
Right.
We're going to get into that.
We're going to get into that. But let me ask you this, because like I mentioned, when I introduced you, in addition to being an activist, you are the host of Necessary Blackness podcast. And I love that. I love the title because you are always reminding us that at the end of this, a lot of race plays a part in so much, right? So understanding that you're an advocate for our community, how can we as a community come together if we're pitting black women against black men? There's so much negativity on social media, which bothers me, black women versus black men. And Kevin Samuels did play a part in that. When you're making fun of black women saying they're overweight, they're obese, they're not worthy of a man that they want. And I'm not saying that there aren't issues on the other side, right? We saw the meme with the young lady saying that, angry at her child's father because he brought McDonald's to one child. A lot of women on social media saying if a man doesn't have money, he doesn't have value, he doesn't have worth. I'm not advocating for either side because we can't, in order for us to come together and be powerful, we have to support our kings and you all have to support us as queens. So in that dissension is what my issue was with Kevin Samuels' theology, like his philosophy. It was a lot of pitting one against the other, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the gender divide and the war between, men and women, that definitely got to stop.
Yeah.
How they say it, the choir is louder than the soloist, So all of us together, we have a commonality. We are the holders and keepers of ourselves in predicament, And what we have to do is we have to abide by the code.
Yeah.
And the code is black first. And you can't be out here, expressing vitriol towards black women. You know what I mean? And I think we're seeing that more than ever. I know it exists, but it didn't exist to this level. And I think since the advent of social media, we're seeing it in bigger proportion.
Right.
But if you live in black society, you cannot make what you see on social media your reality. Because in my inner circles, it's all about loving the black woman, protecting the black woman, and building a black family.
Right.
So we gotta come back to that.
How do we get back to that? Because like you said, I agree, and I know I've known you for a long time. That has always been what you're about promoting. But we see there's so much dissension and separatism, and it seems to be an agenda to push black women and to leave black men out of that conversation. Do you feel that?
Oh yeah. And you know what? Anything that starts out good, if it's not done, in a conducive manner, it ends up bad. And I think one of the things was when, and I still promote it, when we hashtag Black Girl Magic,
Yeah.
So it's just like, you raise the women up, and no nation could rise higher than its woman, you know what I mean? And then you relegate the black man to the lowest rung of society, and that is a thing that's done by the dominant media, dominant society,
right?
And black women should not fall into that, you know. And I had situations like that, where I was helping an individual with a project, and they just kept putting pictures, want me to take pictures of them and all the females. And I was like, listen, you want this to be a community thing? Every one of y'all got children. Every one of y'all got husband. And all the pictures, Black Girl Magic, Black Girl Magic. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And the project didn't work. And I told her why. I said, look. And then we switched it up, and then we got the results we was looking for.
Yeah. I think we're stronger together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we each have strengths and we each have weaknesses. One of the things that Kevin Samuels and actually one of my friends, Aaron Maxwell, talks a lot about, i.e. Mr. Let Go, is single parent families, right? And the fact that a lot of us I think we're dealing with the results of children being raised in single parent families. And so we don't have, there's that missing, men's voice are missing a lot in raising our children, because a lot of children are growing up without that fatherly presence and that confidence that you would get from a father. So one of the things that I did see Kevin Samuels talk a lot about is that women should not be having children. Actually, T.D. Jakes, did you see T.D. Jakes' meme recently where he said that we're raising women? He said we're raising women to be men. And my problem with that is we're not women did not choose. I know, you've known me for years.
Yeah.
I was a single mom for a long time. I didn't choose to be a man. I didn't have a choice. Once my ex-husband left, then I became the head of the household, and I had to raise my son and my daughter. And I had to get out there and be, be in business. I have an entrepreneur and be the man. So my problem with what T.D. Jakes said is, and that was just a clip, I didn't see the entire sermon, but when we say that black women are acting like men and are being raised to be men, we're not also addressing how did we get here, right? Yeah. We got here because men were missing. And when a man leaves for whatever reason, or maybe the woman, whatever, when he leaves, that woman has no choice but to either step up to the plate or not step up to the plate, and then her children aren't taken care of, and she's doing whatever she got to do for a little piece of change. And that's not, to me, that's not acceptable. To me, I don't have friends that do that. We rise up and we accept the challenge. So how can we point our finger at black women and say, you all are acting like men, when we're not saying, if you don't want black women acting like men need to stay in the home?
What I think he was probably alluding to is when you have certain segments of society, not all women. Let me say that again. Right. Not all women.
Yeah.
When they say, I don't need a man, I'm independent. And if you look at the dynamics of the male-female relationship, a lot of women are, they signifying that they wear the pants in the relationship. So I think he was talking more so to those type of women. And then on another note, when you said that you didn't choose the position to raise your son, you had no choice. But the difference between you and what a lot of other women do, you had mentors for him.
Yeah,
you
were one of those. Yeah.
I came to his birthday party. I was excited for him. You know what I mean? When he went to college, when he wrote his book.
That's true.
So when you have strong male figures and you have that divine energy presence in a child's life, it makes all the difference.
Okay.
You know, as opposed to just a single mother, her and her sister friends, you know, trying to raise them by herself, and the conversation is, oh, these men ain't no good, and what you can do for me, and how much money you got. It creates a confusion. But to sum it up, you know, we all have to get on code. We have to bring back the black family structure, and you know, we're not greater separated from one another. We're greater when we're together. We got to bring back the black family dynamic.
I agree with that. And that's why I'm glad you're here, because we're going to take a break here in a minute, but I want us to get into, it bothered me a lot to see the Sesame Street characters, and we know, and that seems very, very trivial, right? So Sesame Street characters in a parade, and kids love that type of thing. I was actually on Sesame Street when I was a little kid. Okay. So you see, that's something that is very innocent, right? So these little black girls are out here waving at the characters, and in several incidents, the character Rosita, which actually ironically is a Hispanic-based character, because Sesame Street started trying to diversify years ago, and so they added characters that had different cultural backgrounds. So this character Rosita is actually Hispanic background, and we see her, you know, blowing the young black girls off and high-fiving the white people that are in the parade, and that has caused a backlash for Sesame Street. And I want to get into it. We're gonna get into it in just a minute. But I think with this type of situation, like, because I'm talking about it today, it's not a simple thing. Those subtle racism to me is the most dangerous racism, right? Because, you know, you see someone overtly walking around with, you know, a Confederate flag across their chest and you know, Nazi signs. That's obvious.
The racism I like.
You like that?
I like that.
Well, that's easy. Like, I know to stay away. You know, you get out of my way, I get out of yours. But when it's something that's subtle, right? That's, to me, the thing that breaks children down. That's the thing that messes up children's self-esteem. Those little black girls going out there to say hello, and that character treating them like that. Those are the things that subtly get in a child's conscious, right? And make them see themselves differently. And that's why I think it's so dangerous. I want to come back after this break and talk to Rahiem about how do we deal with things like this as a community? Like, what steps should we take as a community to make sure that this does not continue to happen, and that we redirect the way businesses treat us as a whole? All right. Stay right there. We're coming right back with Rahiem Shabazz here. This is From Christal with Love XO. We'll see you just a few minutes. Stay right there.
Question: what's the only station where you can get R&B, hip hop, pop, and talk radio? Time's up.
Power 108.9, a station for the people.
If you're a content creator, social media socialite, influencer, or simply love to record current events, you need the joystick. The joystick is an essential tool for every type of digital content creator. It holds 2 or more mobile phones or tablets, allowing users to stream and record hands-free on multiple apps simultaneously. And it's lightweight and portable. For more information or to purchase your joystick today, visit our website at www.joystick.com.
Hey, police are on the hunt for a woman who posed as a witch.
Okay.
She scammed 10 people out of, ask me how much money?
How much?
$100,000.
$10,000 a pop.
For readings and love spells down in Florida. Yeah, Naples police said that they have 10 victims come forward with claims that they were deprived of large amounts of money.
What's her name?
According to a report on Monday. It don't say her name. It just say witch. And it got it in bold letters too.
They do. It's you copied and pasted it.
So if you no, I wrote that. So if you down in Naples somewhere, you see a lady riding a broom. Call your local police.
Power 108.
What's going on, y'all? This is Tony Hightower, and you are listening to Power 108.9.
All right, we are back. This is From Christal with Love XO. And before the break, we are talking about I think everything happens on social media now. So something happens, people take video of it, post it on social media, gets to the right people, goes viral. We see Sesame Street characters in a parade blatantly ignoring young black girls and choosing to interact with white children and white parents on multiple occasions. And Kelly Rowland actually spoke out against it. The mother posted it and was very angry. And I understand as a mother, like, how that would have pissed me off, because it makes again, like I said before the break, that is the subtle things that cause children to see themselves differently. Rahiem.
Yeah.
What should our response be when things like this happen? Because there's so many times this type of thing happens.
Before we get to the response, let's go to the problem, right?
Okay.
The problem is that these are racist cowards, that would do that. And cowards, what they do is they look for soft targets, right? Women and children, right? And what happened is just not a lone incident.
Yeah.
Someone had made a collage of like 10, 12 videos of this happening consistently, not with just that one character, with other characters. Now, you said something that was key. You said he was Hispanic.
The character is based on a Hispanic, yeah.
And a lot of people like to put us in this people of color. There's no people of color. There's black and there's white. You know what I mean? And there's different shades of black. And some of them have the mindset of white racist supremacists. And then when you think about Hispanics, right, you have the Latinos and then you have the white Hispanics. And a lot of Hispanics, when they do the census, they check off white, because they want to have close proximity to whiteness. So it doesn't surprise me that if it wasn't an Anglo-Saxon, it was a white man, it was a Hispanic. And I'm just being perfectly honest, you know, and that's what we seeing in society. And this is not something that is brand new. It's just like I said earlier, with the advent of social media, we seeing things in real time.
Right.
And that's why within a matter of minutes, there was 10, 12 clips of showing not just that same character consistently ignoring black children. And they put out a what I would call a boilerplate statement. Yeah. We saw.
They had to, because once Kelly Rowland posted and other celebrities started saying something, from a PR perspective, they had to come and say something, because that's going to be money and advertisers.
But do we keep falling for that? Like, it's the same thing that we sorry, this is not us. We value diversity, and we spoke to the family and we invited them back. And come on, man. You know what I mean? That experience is going to live with that child forever.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand, right, is that they did a case study, right, where they was doing people that was traumatized, whether it was from the Holocaust or slavery, and that stays within you for like 7 generations.
Wow.
So this is not something where she's going to wake up tomorrow because she went and sat on Big Bird's lap and it's all said and done. Nah, this is going to have a psychological effect. Did you see her face?
I did. And that's what I was going to say next. Is like, people, you got to put yourself in a child's place. And when you're that excited, you saw they were super excited, go out there. The puppet goes by them purposely, like just shoos them away. And the little girl's face just falls. It just broke my heart, because how at that age, how impactful that is on you. And then because she saw them interacting with people on either side of her, right? It was 2 little girls, but in the first clip, but I saw some of the additional clips, and I know more continue to come. But you're right, that impact on a child lives on. But I didn't know about 7 generations. It's interesting, because we've been having conversations, and your page is one. You guys, if you're not following Rahiem, make sure that you follow his page at Rahiem Shabazz on Instagram. But because a lot of times you can we're all in our bubbles, right? We see things happening in social media in real time, but we're all kind of living into very individual lives. Community is so different than it used to be. But the effects of racism on even our generation, like, there's so much that I was just taught to push through, right? I grew up in between Ohio and Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tulsa, Oklahoma was very racist, extreme, obviously. I mean, Tulsa race riots happened there in the 1920s, and I was growing up there in the 80s, you know, and there's so many times that I remember, you know, you kind of push through anyway, because that's what we're taught as a people, and we're very strong. But when you look back at all the incidents where you knew that you were treated differently because I was the only black girl in the class, and the teacher assumed I was cheating because I was getting good grades, and assumed that, you know, just there's so many subtle things that start to create your view of yourself. And that's why I think our community has such issues with self-esteem and self-confidence, because we're dealing with all these issues that happened at that age, you know?
I think the problem is, you know, when you said that you was taught to just push ahead, you know, don't push back. When you don't push back and you don't call them out, it's almost like you complicit in it because you allow it to happen. This ain't the generation for that.
No, they're not.
This is the most fearless generation.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to be honest, some of y'all are weird,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But I probably would be the same way if I grew up in this generation.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you got to understand, it's not the time that I grew up in.
Yeah.
You know, some of the things they do, you couldn't do that when I was growing up.
Yeah.
But this is what y'all do. This is what it is. Okay, you got to respect it. But they have no fear
They
whatsoever.
have no fear. Yeah.
And it's going to come to a point where, you know, black people are going to have to start producing justice for themselves. You know, now there's certain things that we can do. We don't always have to choose violence. But we got to start spending money in our own community.
Yeah.
You know, when we see things like that, we have to don't accept apologies. You know what I mean?
So how do we handle something like that? I just
Never
want your
forgive,
opinion.
never forget.
Never forgive, never forget.
And to call it out. I'm going to give you an instance, right? And I posted this and it went viral on social media. They had Eric Garner's family, right? They named it Eric Garner's Way in Staten Island, where he, you know, died at. And right in front of the store. And the family, you should see the smiles and how happy everybody was, right? But that same police officer that killed him is still on the force, right? So the same police officer has the ability to kill someone else on the same street that he killed his prior victim on, that he can look up and is named after him. That's not a victory for us.
Yeah.
You know, and people are like, Rahiem, you looking into it deep. No. Y'all got to stop falling victim to benign neglect. And that's where they make it seem like they doing something for you and they really not.
Right.
You know, they really making mockery of you and they giving you symbolic gestures.
Yeah. It's like a pacifier to sit down.
Yeah.
Leave
A
us alone.
street named after you? Really?
Yeah.
Nah.
I mean, we have to live here together, right? We can't separate ourselves.
Who can't?
I know you're on the land. I know you're on the land.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says separation is better than prayer. And I'm just going to leave it like that. But I understand that that's not for everybody. You know, some people, they want to live amongst their oppressors and they want to live and they want to live in society and they feel that we can get along and go along, you know. But when do you say enough is enough? When it happens to your children?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you see, you know, Big Bird, or what would you say that was?
It was Rosalie.
Rosalie.
Right.
Is that a man or a woman?
It's a girl.
Or is it genderless? Because, you know, they with the genderless
I know.
thing,
Well, you know what? It may be gender
may
fluid at
be.
this point, but it was a girl.
All right.
It was a girl.
All right. But it doesn't impact people until it happens to them.
That's
now, if
that's
you
very
look at
true.
they call them the mothers of the civil rights movement now, or Eric Garner or Tamir Rice, all of those that had sons that was
murdered by police.
State sanctioned execution. They said that they never in their life thought that they would be on that side of history, you know. So a lot of times it takes for it to happen to an individual for they to have concern for it. So I understand a lot of people, you know, they say, you know, we can't separate.
I don't think it's that. Because I have a son, right? And I know I've called you because my son is very extremely militant and
and
fearless,
as he should
right?
be.
But as a mother, that scares me, right? Because I know that even though he has 2 masters, 2 bachelors, and
they don't know that.
They don't know that, and when they look at him, they don't see a difference between him and any. I mean, as they shouldn't. And my son is very clear that he is a black man. There's no difference between him and another black man just because he has degrees. But as a mother, and you have a son also, your first instinct is to protect your child at all costs.
Absolutely.
Right? So if that, unfortunately, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was saying that his grandmother taught them to be quiet because they didn't want attention, because when you had attention in the South, you could get in trouble. So when everything was happening with Black Lives Matter, my son was a leader, a president of one of the chapters, and leading marches in a very, very, very white conservative area in upper Massachusetts. It scares me because I don't want him to end up like that. So I guess my question is, there is the fearlessness of wanting to fight, but then we also have to understand in all battles, lives are lost, and we don't need to lose more lives. You know what I mean?
But they're going to be lost regardless. Innocent lives are lost every day for simply just waking up. I can't breathe. Yeah. We remember that, so.
Well, running to the fire just feels like, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. I want your opinion, because we live here in Atlanta, and we know that crime is at an all-time high. And my son is telling me there's no such thing as black on black crime. He doesn't believe in that. He believes there's just crime, right? Because he feels like that's a way for oppressors to use that against us. But we do see black boys shooting each other. We see black communities. There's violence, especially here right now.
Because we live in close proximity to each other.
Right.
And if you go to white communities, it's the same way there. Whoever you're in proximity to, that's where the crime is going to happen. But I think, when people look at crime, we have to look at the root cause of crime.
Yeah.
More policing is not going to stop crime. Actually, police only stop 1% of crimes. They always come after the crime. You know what I mean? So having more police is not going to stop crime. Having more jobs, having more social programs,
I agree with that.
That's what stopped crime. You
Right.
know, and statistics prove it, that when society is doing good and, the median income is up, crime is at an all-time low.
Right.
So right now, we're going through inflation. A lot of people don't want to say it's an inflation, but it is what it is.
We're definitely going through a recession, right?
We can't wait till they tell us that.
Right.
We see the trickle-down effect of what it's doing. And I think anytime you have that, you're going to have an influx of crime.
Yeah. Well, I want to stay right there. We're going to come back with a moment of hope from Pastor Dwight Buckner. I feel like I need the moment of hope. I'm sure everybody else does as well. Moment of hope with Pastor Dwight Buckner. We come back, and then we have more with Rahiem Shabazz. Stay right there. This is From Christal with Love XO. We're talking about love for our community today. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
Welcome to a moment of hope with Pastor Dwight. As a child growing up, I remember my mother having what she called fine china. She only pulled out this fine china on special occasions, only when guests came over. In fact, when she pulled out the fine china, she had to unwrap it, clean the plates off, and then place the food on there as the guests ate on the plates. When the guests left, Mom cleaned the plates off, wrapped them back up, and put them back in the box, never to be touched again until guests came back over. Just like my mom hid that fine china, God is hiding you. You are literally God's best kept secret. And God is literally getting ready to pull you out for a special occasion. See, fine china does not stay out with the regular dishes. You have to hide it because of its value. And the only reason God had you hidden is because you had value. This has been a moment of hope with Pastor Dwight.
Tired of all that baloney they force feed you on social media?
Yes.
Then get connected to Power 108.9, a station for the people.
Yo, what's going on, y'all? This is Malik McFadden, and did you know that you can listen to Power 108.9 24/7? Just visit the website power1089.com or simply say, Alexa, play Power 108.9. Yeah.
All right, we are back. Thanks so much, Pastor Dwight Buckner, for that moment of hope. Definitely appreciate that encouragement as we go through the week. We're still at the top of the week, and there's so much more to come. But Rahiem, we were talking before the break, about how the generations are different. Let's talk about what the solutions can possibly be. I agree with you. The pacification is not necessary at this point. Like, I'm sure for the family, they feel that having a street in his honor is a
win.
Well, I wouldn't say a win. It's a step, right? But let's talk about what we can do, because I do believe, and I say this all the time, in the African proverb, physician, heal thyself. I don't think we should be waiting on others to honor us or to give us accolades. But what can we do to be consistent and, try to come together, as a community and make sure these things don't happen? With Sesame Street, let's just use this as an example. There's been so many. We see Walmart with the Juneteenth. Like, it's just so many things that happen. And I don't think there's a way. We talk about it. We share it on social media. But I think people don't know what to do next. Like, sharing it, talking about that doesn't do anything.
I think that's the first step, because when you had the Juneteenth thing, everybody was in an uproar. And then you see what they do. They pulled it, So that just goes to show you the power of our voice, the power of black dollars.
Yeah.
But they went as far as to trademark Juneteenth. So these people are trying to profit off our pain and suffering.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then they want to celebrate it with us. So we got to be very careful of that. And I think the first thing is making awareness. This is what's happening. You know what I mean? Report it to the masses of people. And then after that, we have to get on cold. We need to make our own characters.
Yeah.
We need to make our own characters. And then we need to boycott watching Sesame Street. We need to go after their sponsors, you know, because you always got to hit them in the pocket.
Absolutely.
So if you, Colgate, Procter and Gamble, Coca-Cola, who's their sponsors?
Right.
And once you have their sponsors start pulling things, and then they'll come to the table.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's a more strategic effort, I think, that we need. It is, it's great to share it on social media, but I think there has to be a strategy, and the financial impact is the one that people pay attention to. When those sponsors and advertisers start to pull their dollars, they do. But I like what you said about creating our own characters, because we grew up on Sesame Street, right? But we also grew up in an era where we didn't see ourselves. And I knew, being a little black girl growing up in the 70s, that we didn't have a lot of options that we have today, right? So now, if I had a child, I would definitely buy black dolls and black things, because now we have those options, and we understand the detriment and the danger that does to a child's psyche when they're not represented. So I think this is a call for us to be more intentional to support programs for our children, right? So I'm not taking my children out to see Sesame Street, because I'm not even going to give you the power to reject my child. You don't have that power.
Absolutely.
Right?
You remember what it was called, Clark, Dr. Clark? Remember they did the black doll test?
Yes, yeah. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah,
and
they did that. They did it like in the 1930s, and they did it into the 1960s.
I know the 60s, because I did a project on that in college, and how little black kids would choose the white doll and felt like the white doll was beautiful, the black doll was ugly, mean, dangerous, all these adjectives. And it comes from that subtle racism. That's why I feel like that's the most dangerous thing to our community, because it creates a culture and environment where it's accepted.
Let me ask you a question. If they was to do that in 2022, what would you think the results would be? I think it would be different.
I think it would be different as well.
Yeah,
I think it would be different as well, because you see there are more options. Even when my daughter was born, my daughter, is in her mid-20s now, there were beginning to be more options, but now every time I go someplace, if I go to, Essence a couple weeks ago, I wasn't able to go, but when I went before, you see so many options in the store. There are different options, but I think the issue is us choosing not just to pick up the black doll, but to go to the black owned store
and buy it ourselves. Yeah.
And I think that movement started with 2020 again as a pacification to what happened, but we have to continue that movement. And so now I think we have the knowledge to be intentional about spending our dollars, because that's what makes change is money, right?
And another thing, during the uprisings that was going on in 2020, right? All these big Fortune 500 companies was placing millions and millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Do you know a report came out about 2 weeks ago? Less than 1% of them actually fulfilled their promise to do what they was going to do.
Right.
But no one is holding them accountable. So what I'm going to do is we're going to, I got a team, and we're going to put together a list, and we're going to call them out on social media, and I'm going to get 100,000 people to add them.
Yeah.
Like, people don't understand the power of social media. There was a, how insurance companies, they have subsidiaries or affiliates. There was one of them, right? And he said, he put up a sign, "We are closed for Juneteenth, for hot dogs and Black Pride," or whatever. He made a joke of it, you know what I mean? And like really dismissed it, like, it's real unfortunate we got to close because of this, right?
Yeah.
And I just reached out to Allstate. Somebody took a screenshot, sent it to me, and I said, "This is what we doing." And guess what they did? "We sorry, Rahiem Shabazz. This is not who we are. We practice the same boilerplate thing," and they cut all ties with them.
Yeah.
So we have the power. We just got to be strategic and exercise that power.
Yeah.
So what we gonna do about Sesame Street?
Sesame Street, man. I mean, I think there needs to be a boycott, and that we have to boycott it, and we have, and because I know, like I said, Sesame Street attempted to diversify. We need to attack those advertisers and those sponsors. I mean, that's a big money maker, right?
The kids are gonna be mad. You're gonna tell them you can't come on Sesame Street.
Well, but you know what? Like I
said,
we have to have options.
That's why we need to have options.
Yeah. We need to have
never
options.
let them into the minds of our children.
We didn't know, Rahiem.
I knew.
Well,
Malcolm X said we're the only race of people allow open enemies to educate us.
You're right.
And now, listen, we done took it a step further. We got Barney, we got Big Bird educating our children.
I don't know if Barney is still around. I know it's Peppa Pig.
My son used to love
different.
Barney.
These kids, it's Peppa Pig, and it's a
Peppa Pig.
Shark.
A pig?
It's a pig, and then it's a Rahiem. I already know where you're going with the pig. I already know where you're going with the pig. Let's talk about your book that's coming out next month that you have, because we didn't even get a chance to talk about the documentaries, Elementary Genocide, because to me, whatever is taught to the children shapes the generation, right?
Absolutely.
Because the children, all that's taught to children from age 0 to 12, even really younger than 12, but definitely 0 to 12 shapes their personality. And that's why that's the backlash that we're seeing now with the young people, is because of what they experience from those ages of 0 to 12. So your documentaries touched on what is going on in the school system, the school to prison pipeline, with basically where we're our young boys. And I think
you helped me with that, right?
I did.
I forget what I had there. I had elementary genocide, and I had some big long word, and you was like, no,
you didn't. No, I'm gonna call you out, Rahiem. You didn't. I came with the title Elementary Genocide.
That's what I'm saying. I had a long word, and you was like, no, call it. You said call it Elementary Genocide.
You see how he
prison pipeline. No, I thought you came up with the school to prison pipeline.
No, you came up with the school to prison pipeline.
It was something that I know we was going back. No,
because I told him, I said Elementary Genocide sound. It's a title that will grab people, and you were like, yeah. And the next thing you know, I see the title, and I'm like, that's how we help each other.
See, you helped me out because, and you know what? It was a concept and an idea.
Yeah.
And I took that idea and I ran with it. And let me tell you something.
Congratulations on all your success.
Hundreds of thousands of copies. Traveled all over the world with that. And just from sitting down and formulating the ideas. And the crazy part of it is when I first put it out and I said they're looking at 3rd and 4th grade reading levels to determine how many prisons they're going to build in the next 10 to 15 years. And then they sell them on the stock market. And I showed how you could go to the stock market and see the private prisons and see the uptick in it based on the policies of the presidents, right? And when Obama gave his State of the Union speech and he mentioned the school to prison pipeline, my phone went off the hook. They thought I coined the phrase. It was like, he's talking about your documentary. Sales went through the roof. And then we came back and we did part 2, Board of Education versus the Board of Incarceration. And we talked about the landmark ruling of Brown versus Board of Education. Then 3 is Elementary Genocide 3, Academic Holocaust. And we used the uprisings that was happening at that time, and we showed that the assassination of your mind and the assassination of your critical thinking is no different than the assassination of black bodies in the streets. And we ended it there. So now I got the book coming out.
So I want to say that we were having a conversation, just two friends on the phone having a conversation, and I taught school for 1 year, and in that time I learned about that theory of 3rd grade boys, and I was teaching 1st grade, but I was at a black charter school, Deborah Brown Academy in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and she taught us all that information. So I was like, that's how I knew the importance of that and what that those young black boys, because a lot of them, because we're taught different, we learn different.
Absolutely.
They go into a white school system. They're not familiar. It's as simple as like even the sound of the teacher's voice, right? So a white teacher's like, sit down, Cameron. Cameron is not going to sit down, right? So I remember when I was teaching, I'd be like, you don't sit your behind down. He recognizes that and he sits down. It's a different response. That's why it's so important. But in the school system, when you have kids like that, just as brilliant, but just not responding to that, then kids get labeled. They label our children slow. They label them with disabilities, and that follows those children throughout their academic career. The parents aren't even aware of what's in your child's record because a 1st or 2nd grade teacher that they didn't respond to has labeled that child as having a learning disability, and that's going to hamper them from getting into college, from getting opportunities. And so I know for me, it allowed learning that, because my son was probably 2 when I taught. And so I knew, I was like, oh no, I'm going to do exactly the opposite, with my kid. I worked for a museum, and I saw how these white parents would kit their kids in all these different activities when they were young, and they would have all types of scholarships and opportunities for money when they didn't even need it. And I'm like, they don't even need. So I put my kid in every single thing. He was in chess club. They were teaching their children strategy at 3 years old. So
that's why he was able to write that science fiction book.
That's why
how old was he? He was like 14, right?
He was 14 when the book was published.
And then he award winning.
He won Black Science Fiction Author of the Year at 15 years old.
I read the book, but I was like, I couldn't get into it because I don't really understand science fiction.
Yeah, but science
fiction.
And
then the words he was using, I had to go to the dictionary.
Yeah, but that's because I learned, and I said, I'm going to put this in my children, but we got to put it in our community. So what's the name of the book before we get out of here? Tell us about the book and when the book is going to be released.
It's called Radical Hope in the 21st Century. Do we cling to hope or we go to despair? And it comes out August 22nd, which is my birthday, my solar return.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me, Rahiem. I love you. I'm so proud of you and all you continue to do for our community. We need soldiers like you to keep us aware, of what's going on. I appreciate you all for hanging out with us, spending your lunch hour, getting a little education, a little advocacy, and education always helps. I will be right back here next week at noon with more from Christal with Love. I love you all. Have a productive week. See you next time.
Christal with love, come on, let's talk about it. From Christal with love, come on. From Christal with love, come on, let's